good morning, and welcome to our podcast, your podcast, Vibe Talk Facing the Lion podcast. We're streaming everywhere by now, you guys should already know that. We're asking please follow us as well as see our YouTube channel. Today is Think About Thursday. And as we think about Thursday, we want to share with you all what we've been doing with our Think About Thursdays. Questions that make you think. You're going to get a chance to hear about that in just one moment. As we talk about three important things, and I want you to think about this, because one of the things for today's podcast is going to turn into a question, and we'd love for you to answer. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about the Think About Thursday section on YouTube. YouTube will lead you into wanting to talk. One of the suggestions that I liked that one caller had was, even if you don't want to talk about it to the world, you can journal it and share it or send it. We are still accepting any donations. Our GoFundMe is still up. If you feel like you want to donate to that, we want you to do it from your heart. It's all going to go towards the program, the Healing Center, which is all part of Vibe Talk Facing the Lion podcast. January the 4th, we're going to have a big celebration for Vibe Talk Facing the Lion podcast and the Healing Center that will be opening in our community, that will talk about all the things we've been talking about, but we will do it person to person and in person right at the center. The Healing Center. Let me give you that address. 1317 East Palmdale Boulevard, Suite 18, and it is the Healing Center, Palmdale, California, 93550. Now, if you think that you'd like to be a part of the Healing Center, you can come at your own discretion. Our first doors opening for group or individual sessions is going to be on January the 6th, Monday, 2025. If you are missing any information, I'd like to say to you, don't fret. You will see it on our Facebook page at Vibe Talk or Vibe-Talk, and you will get the information on YouTube. We'd love for you to join us as we welcome this new Healing Center. 5 years and connecting. Today, we're going to talk about three parts of ourselves. And even if you didn't know that you have them, I want you to think about what having it means to you. So on the backboard, we have transformation. And on that transformation, you and I have discovery, freedom, and power. And I'm going to take a screenshot, Trish. I'm going to let you in just 1 second. I need to take a screenshot. There we go. Okay. And We're going to learn so much today. Okay, go ahead. I'll let you in right now. I lost you. Now, let's talk about those parts of ourselves. And we're going to do that. I'm just you in. As we think about Thursday, we've learned to discover. Well, what about those parts of ourselves that we have not yet discovered and still are going to discover? What's been in your way that you can't see? What's been in your way that you couldn't see or that you still can't see? Maybe you're in your way. Maybe you feel like your power is not yet wielded, so you feel perhaps someone else besides you is in your way. Have you discovered? What is it that you have discovered about this healing journey? Or do you even think that you need a healing journey? Good morning, Trish.
Good morning.
How about finding, while you are making changes or thinking about changing, freedom? You know, we talk about the butterfly that flies unrestricted. What has restricted you? What is holding you back? Now, I know from one human to another that you've got plans. In your plans, you've thought it out, but you just haven't found the wings to do it. The butterfly knows all too well what freedom means. But now you human, you are capable of expressing what freedom feels like to you. We talk a lot about the superhero subject. And I love talking about that because when you were a little kid, everyone wanted to be some type of hero. And everyone had a hero, starting with your mother, father, whoever that might be. You had that, or you yearned for that. What part of yourself has a power that's effective? I want you to think about that. How do you find yourself still powerful, or are you powerless? And we're going to go into superhero theory for a moment. As you grew up, everyone has a favorite superhero. Mine was always Wonder Woman. Because you see, Wonder Woman had the ability to disguise herself. And within moments when she needed to, she had the power to turn herself into that powerful person. But what the stories forgot to tell us is that even without their outfits that we know them as, we identify them, they are still powerful. And that's why we wanted to be just like them. I also wanted to be the Bionic Woman. And then I loved Isis and Electra Woman and Dyna Girl because they were powerful in my eyes. But now, how are you like them? Or have you discovered your power? Or are we still talking about being powerless? I want you today to think about ways that you can take back your power. Did you know that even in silence, you can still manage to take back your power? Something to think about, isn't it? So we're going to be talking about freedom, discovery, and the power to do it. Which one would you say resonates with you strongly? The power, or that you have discovered something about yourself that you never knew you had, but you found it? Or you've rediscovered something about yourself? How about freedom? Freedom to be the person that you long to be. See, no one can make you that. You have the power to become whatever it is that you need to be. Transformation Tuesday, we always let you in on change. Is change good for you, or has a change been a challenge, or has it been unhealthy? We look at all sides of transformation because, people always say change is good. But I'd like to ask you and come a little closer. Is change good? Is all change good? Because either the one that is not so good and the one that has been great for you, what it teaches you is that something has changed in your life. But now, how does it affect you? That's what we're going to be talking about today, in hopes of thinking about doing something. Now, freedom. People say freedom of speech. I want to say this. I want to stand for this. I want to do this. I'm about, and the list goes on and on. But how free are you when you think about your life? Are you free enough to speak how you feel? Or say what you mean? Or when you talk, do people clearly understand what it is that you are conveying? Because, there are some people in the world who will try to take that freedom from you, keep you silent. Now, let's think about all the silent people, and let's see if any of you fit this criteria. Those are the ones that are in a domestic violent relationship. They can't really tell you that they're being knocked around, they're being abused sexually, they're being physically, verbally, mentally, emotionally. They feel like they don't have that freedom. And Vibe Talk for the last 5 years has pointed you in the direction to tell your story. We've given you some beautiful things, resources, and that's what Vibe Talk does too. And the Healing Center will continue to point you to these things. That is, if you really want them. you are free to express yourself. And that's why I encourage even parents to let your children speak. And I agree 100% that there is a respectful way of doing it. You know, for freeness of speech, every person in the room must feel safe to do so. You know the game, and I'm going to say this again because I've noticed that there's a lot of challenges, and there's one that listen and do not judge. Well, that applies to you, myself, and anybody else that we come in contact with. Are we really giving people the freeness to speak without saying, that's not true, that's not how I see it? We listen so as to hear. One time I went to a class in training, and I noticed that people either want to shut you out and want to take on the floor and let no one speak. Those are the people that keep you from your freedom to speak, because they always have something to say. How many of us have met people that always have something to say?
I have.
And how did that make you feel?
It made me feel annoyed, and also it didn't make me feel uh safe to say what I need to say, because they're just gonna talk in front of me. They're just gonna talk for me, so there's no need for me to speak. That's how I felt.
Yeah. And that's what we don't want in the healing center, because there's going to be many of you who come for group. There's going to be many of you who are going to be in workshop. We want you to understand the freedom. You know that thing that I said about domestic violence? Maybe it is not your situation, but keep in mind as a thought that it is somebody's situation. So what we're not going to say is, you know, you should have left the first time she or he abused you. We're not going to say that. We're going to listen so as to or hear, excuse me. Listen to hear. There's two different. One is I'm listening, but I'm not really hearing you. And the other is I can hear you because I'm focused on what is coming out of your verbiage, your mouth, what is coming off of your tongue, what is coming out of your lips, what is coming out of your heart. So let's give each other freedom. Let's make every person, as we have been doing in Vibe Talk Facing the Lion podcast for 5 years, and still connecting the freedom to speak. Because not everybody is going to feel safe. The first time you hit those healing doors, you're going to have discovered some things. From the very first time you walk in, we want you to think before you speak to anyone. We've made it so, and I'm going to tell you right now, boy, Trisha and I have worked out where people really get it. They'll even tell us, we know we got to listen and then we speak. We're going to have a chance to introduce ourselves in person, get to know people, because everyone has a story. You just don't know it. Or have you been paying attention to everybody's got a story? Because we all know that. But do you really listen? Yesterday, as I was doing some footwork and connecting with the public, I ran into a man not literally with a car, but got in connection with a man. And he began to start talking to me after I approached him about knowledge of the healing center. I would have never guessed the words that were coming out of that man's mouth. He began to tell me how he had many losses and that his daughter passed away. I didn't ask him questions because I'm there to listen. He had freedom of speech. Many people will start to tell you things even without asking. So I left him information about our new healing center. And by the way, you don't have to be in the community to join the healing center. You can, in the group, just like we've been doing, we can put you live on video. All you have to do is click the button. Let's go to discovery. Discovery. We've looked at discovery things about ourselves. We've asked questions. What have you discovered about yourself during the podcast? We haven't left those questions. But in your comments, you're going to be able to say something about yourself because you just cannot listen to Vibe Talk Facing the Lion podcast and not say anything or not think about anything. And knock yourself out because we've got almost 500 videos for you to look at. You want to know? Hashtag Vibe Talk Facing the Lion podcast, and you'll see for yourself. And you're going to discover things about you that have always been there. But what you've done is that you were able to understand you. Because sometimes the only people that stand in our way are me, myself, and I paused for a moment because I want you to think deeply about discovering. You know that thing that I said about people in relationships or in domestic violence relationships? See, it's not for you to say, do you know that you're in a violent relationship or you're in a domestic unhealthy relationship? It is about them discovering it, you discovering it. You ever watched a child when they discover something? Little babies, when they start to notice their hands, their little fingers, it's a wow, I got fingers. And then when they start to play with their feet, wow, these things work. That's the same as an adult when they realize that they have been abused in various types of ways. They learn to discover. It is not up to me. It is not up to the other person to say, tell me. Because a lot of times, let me just tell you, they've got to discover first that they're even in a domestic, unhealthy relationship. We might know, but discovery is like wondering. You know, I've worked with kindergartners, preschoolers. You let them all out, what do? When you let them all out, they run, play, and they're discovering. That's why it's called a recess, a break. And in your case, talking to the ones who have not yet discovered that you may be in a domestic violent relationship, if that's the case, when it hits you, you start to realize, hey, wait a minute. I've been in this relationship for this many years. See, you don't need anybody poking and prodding you, because that's not going to help them. There was a saying, you can lead a horse to water, but that's why you can't make them drink. You can tell a person that they're in a domestic violent relationship, domestic abuse, whatever it is, and they're not going to accept that until they discover about themselves. You've heard us for the last 5.5 years. You might have heard me ask a question. How long? When did it start? What was the first time? It takes people a little while. It's like with me using devices. I get a new device. Half the time, I gotta first figure out how to turn it on. Literally, I know you guys laugh at me, and that's okay, because I laugh at myself. One time, I took a device back because I thought it was broken. Come to find out, I didn't know how to work it because it was brand new. I took it back to the store and I said, this doesn't work. This is broken. All because I did not know how to fix it. How many times have we said to ourselves, we're broken, but I just don't know how to fix me? We are broken. And the very beautiful thing about Vibe Talk in the last 5 years is that you've discovered how to fix things through your own work. You see, the Healing Center is going to be all about you discovering things about yourself. Some of those things are going to make you sick, while others of those things are going to make you feel like those kindergartners who break free when recess comes. Every parent has saw it and every teacher has saw it. They are free. And you hear yelling and screaming, and they're so happy to be outside. You can hardly get them back in line to get back in the classroom. That's where you want to be. You want to be free, don't you? Or do you? Freedom. Discovering there needs to be a change in your life, in your way, because we're so busy trying to change others. In my lifetime, I have wanted to fix him, fix them, fix the other, fix them. And I never said once, I need to work on it.
I relate to that.
Go ahead, Trish. Tell us about that experience.
I spent a lot of time trying to help other people out with their problems. Friends I had, I spent a lot of time doing that, and I treated myself like, the box of keepsakes that you have, and then you just put it all the way to the back of your closet, and you're like, I'm gonna go over that later. I'm gonna handle that later. I treated myself like that, and it got so bad to where, how all the coats and stuff lines up in the closet, and you forget that box is there. It's
Mm-hmm.
like your moving day, and then, oh, that box is over there. I forgot about that. And then that's what the intro you guys hear for Vibe Talk, about me focusing on myself. Um that was what that was about. That's what I was talking about. Because I was so focused on helping other people and I forgot about me and I dismissed me. So I can relate to that.
And I like the way you changed that up when you said forgot about me and then you said dismissed you, because that's what we do. And that's a powerful word. You ever been mad at somebody and they start talking to you? You know, because kids will do it. Little kids will do it. They'll put their hands over their ears so they can't hear you. If you're ever a parent, how do you feel when you see a kid do that? They just dismiss what you said. And that's what we do to ourselves. We are, in fact, doing that because we don't want to hear it. We don't want to acknowledge it. But I'll tell you what, to acknowledge yourself for the first time ever in your life is a beautiful thing. Did I say beautiful? Oh, I forgot to tell you that sometimes it's very painful and very messy. Because, see, you've been in a comfort zone. You've been in the zone of, I'm comfortable with this. The way that I've dismissed, the way that I've turned my voice off, the way that I've stopped speaking, the way that I have lost my power, so it seems. And when you understand to gain that discovery of your power and that you have become powerful in your actions and your speech, yes, what? It's like the latest and the greatest thing. You will cry it out. You will stamp it out. You will scream it out. But you'll be fine because you're just like those little kids who have just been let out to freedom to enjoy life. Because that's what they're doing. When you see little kids at play, they're discovering things. Sometimes bugs, rocks, the freedom to play with the other kids and get to know them, and that was fun. You'll have days like that. But let your discovery make you someone that does something more for you. And again, we don't in any way promote selfishness. That's not what we're saying. We're talking about caring for yourself for the first time. You know, because sometimes we say nobody cares about us. Well, if I were to ask you to write a list of nobody cares about you, who would be the first person that you would put on your list? Don't say anything. Just think. I can almost put this in writing that none of you will put in that list that you don't care. When your list should include you if that's how you feel. There was a time I didn't care about me, so I couldn't care about others. And the reason for that was because of experiencing hurt, rejection, abandonment that makes you feel very unsafe. And I'm going to tell you guys something right here and right now. There's still traits of you that feel very unsafe. And I discovered it this week. But that's okay. In the game of healing, okay? And I call it the game because life affords me the opportunity to be able to take care of it. And I couldn't teach you what I've taught this far if I didn't go through any kind of negative emotion. You're not going to learn from somebody that had the most perfect life because you're going to say, well, they had a perfect life. Guaranteed, no one living on the earth has had a perfect life. The healing center was even an idea before it even came to be. We just didn't know it yet. What we've discovered in the last 5 years is, hey, we're doing this on Zoom, or excuse me, video, and we're bringing it to 54 states and counting out of the United States. Those people too. Why can't we bring it to 4 in person? Discovery. Power. Your voice has power. Your means of speaking has power. The most powerful thing that you could ever do in life is impact someone by your words. We talk about that all the time. You see, people scream and they holler, and you say, why are they so loud? How many of you have had to deal with that kind of situation? They're so loud. And half the time, because of the loudness, you didn't even understand what they just said. All you hear is the screaming and the yelling if you're around those kind of people. But now people that have something to say, some of those people are the quietest people. Because you know what? How many of us pay more attention to someone that is really quiet and really reserved versus the loudest person in the room? We pay attention to the loudest person in the room because for me it's a distraction. But you know what I'm really looking at is that person that never says. See, their impact is powerful because I want to know what's going on. You know, a lot of people fail to realize or are challenged to realize, you know, if you've ever been in a school setting, you know, if you weren't the loudest person in the room, the one that always had the hand up, because that's the one the teacher wants to call on. I don't know if the teacher has ran out of words, lessons, I don't know, but they keep calling on that person. See, I switched the game up. And I used to do this a lot when I first started teaching. I would call on the quietest person because the quietest person is the most powerful person. That doesn't mean that a loud person is not powerful. But why do I do that? Because I know that the quietest person always has the most to say. And in that discovery, you'll find out, wow, I never heard that person speak like that before. You discovered something. Now, your freedom is a choice freedom. Because a lot of you may not understand what real freedom is. That might explain some of your actions. But real freedom feels. I want you to take a breath. And I want you to notice as you inhale how you just exhale. Can you imagine if your breathing was restricted? That would be pretty hard for you to breathe. Some people are living with those conditions in a physical sense. But now it took nothing for you to breathe, right? You had freedom to breathe. Didn't it feel great? Once you inhaled, you were able to exhale freely. That's what real freedom is like. And so the Healing Center is going to do just that in your thinking about Thursday. We have many resources. If you don't want to come to our Healing Center, you're going to find another way to heal. But we want you to come raw and ready. And I will accept your challenge that you want to get well. Stay well and be well. Before we go to Trisha's treasures, I want to talk about last week's question because I think it affords opportunity for you to have a listen and why people need to. Because I've been having like our Think About Thursdays in question forms, and I want to play something for you that I think you're really going to enjoy. And you're going to enjoy it. Okay, and this is on our YouTube channel as well, but I'd like to bring it to you in case you guys don't want to go to the YouTube, okay, and listen to the question and listen to the answer. And Trish, thank you for your reply on how you felt about that. We're going to do this now, and hold on.
There is a lot to.
Hold on. Just 1 second.
Today we're going to think about our thoughts, and we're going to think about our childhood. We've all had one, and so let's revisit, embrace, and show kindness to ourselves as that child. And so here's the prompt that helps us in our healing process. Thinking of yourself as a child, we're going to think about your childhood. What empowering words would your adult self share with your child or about your childhood? We want you to think about this prompt because this prompt will trigger this prompt will help you to think about your childhood and what it was like for you. And the purpose of this is so that you and I can look deeply at where things may have begun for us. We are all born with a clean slate. And somewhere, somehow, things began to happen. I'd like for you to answer if you're comfortable, if you feel safe answering. I know for some it may be difficult, but we'll get through it. And remember that I am a certified life coach, and your well-being and your wellness is important to me. I'd also like you to go to my Facebook page as I talk and teach about childhood wounds, and have a look at that as you think about these questions. How do you talk to yourself as the adult that you are to or about your childhood? How do you talk to your inner child? I'd love the feedback from you, and remember to embrace your inner child. And always remember, when you rediscover, it's empowering. May you all have inspiration, and may you all continue to be able to give yourself permission to embrace yourself as a child. I'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to get back to me, please feel free to answer here. Have a good day, everyone.
Hey, thank you for the invite. I think this is a fantastic swell, and upon hearing the question, it immediately brought on lots of, perspectives that apply to my life, and particularly, like you said, witnessing and remembering what it was that my childhood consisted of. And, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I'm only speaking from my perspective, but I feel like more often than not, this question doesn't promote the natural deviation of the positive moments, right? I feel like through this process, you're going to be exposing the things that you want to offer yourself a sense of encouragement regarding. At least that was my experience. It wasn't like, oh, you did so good and all this other stuff. It was immediately like, the reason those kids are so mean to you is because they just don't understand your perspective, and that's okay. Everybody has a different perspective, and that doesn't mean they're wrong. It just means they're a little confused, and it's best that you don't take it personally. It's best that you don't let them convince you that you are a certain way, which of course indicates bullying that I've experienced, and many of us have experienced throughout our life. But I experienced it quite a bit in my childhood. So, there's lots of things like that come up. I think that's probably the biggest one that comes up immediately, initially, without much digging or diving. I'm sure if I sat in a relaxed state where I'm not actively driving like I am right now, and instead allowed myself just to feel and breathe, I think I would probably get to experience a slightly different truth or slightly different answer in that process. This is a powerful question. I'm going to re-swell it, so hopefully it reaches a couple more people, and through that we can at least give people the consideration, even if they don't wish to answer it on their own publicly here, which is completely fine. It's still great to contemplate it and then maybe journal instead. So thank you for your time, and thank you for posing this question. I really appreciate that incentive or that initiative. Have a great day.
Thank you for the invite. I listened to your prompts and I never answered because maybe I'm afraid I'm going to tear up, say something that I don't want to. However, this one I'm interested in. I put myself in my inner child. And when I do that, because I've tried, I feel more sorry for my parents than me. My inner child, some would say, has a lot of trauma. I don't like to use that word. I was 2 years old. I was given a medication that I was allergic to. And I spent the next year in the children's ward, 2 to 3. The allergic reaction to sulfur gave me something called Stevens-Johnson syndrome. And I was told I would go blind when I was an old lady. Well, I thought an old lady was 99. Turns out an old lady meant 45. So it's been about 5 years. I'm to be technical. I have low vision. I'm not completely blind. When I think of my inner child, I see this frizzy little hair, black glasses, kind of old people wear, wrapped around their head, black teeth, because it took all the calcium out of me, and two parents taking pictures of her at Disneyland, where she's posing like a model, one hand on the head, one hand on the hip, smiling. And I think, what a great childhood. And then I dig deeper and I go, why did my mom leave me with my dad? Let me make this very clear. I was so blessed to have chosen my dad, is what had happened. I chose my dad at 5. He felt stable. He was a Vietnam vet. He was a soul man. I felt safe. My mom said, okay. And I think that I strived, I urged for her attention at night while I was, flipping through magazines, listening to the radio. I would often imagine my mom brushing my sister's hair and reading them stories while my dad was asleep, and it was dead quiet. And I often think, why did you let me go with a man? Because I wouldn't allow that with my daughter. I'd say babies belong with their mothers. So whereas I think I had a beautiful childhood, I did, I also realized my mom was a human being. I was a very strong-minded little girl, very strong-willed. But I still feel sorry for her because I chose my dad. So I have this issue where I would be right on the verge of accepting like who I was and maybe just a tear for me, but then it extends to them. I have a lot of empathy for everybody. I just feel like maybe I'm in denial about my vision, or maybe I'm putting more into them. That's why my mom allowed me to stay with my wonderful dad. But I know that I wouldn't have. And I am a mother of a 30-year-old. So that's very difficult. I'm going to leave it at that. This is what I was afraid of. I like how you started it off with music. It was very cool. And I love your prompts. You can definitely I bet you people divulge things to you. I hope that you respond. Thank you again. You are so very welcome, and I thank you for taking the time to think about that question. Yeah. I'm not really understanding revisiting your childhood. I guess offering some empowering words for yourself as a child, as an adult. Too much going on for me these days. But I was going to say this. When I was a youngster, I don't know exactly how old I was. Maybe 7, 8. I don't know how old I was. And I had taken something off of my mother's dresser. If I remember, I believe it was money that I had taken. And I remember my father, I remember there was supposed to be this big old moment where, my father, I guess he was going to, beat me because of this. But I don't remember. I don't remember what happened. I just remember going into their room and him having to have a conversation with me. And I remember him telling me that he didn't want me. In fact, he told me some story about that when they went to get me, that my mother was the one that wanted me. And that it almost sounded like the story was he got me to please his wife because I was an adopted child. And I don't know, but I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened because I would have that dream constantly. Like there's a couple of dreams that I have. Like I have like 3, 4 dreams that I always have for some reason. And I remember that dream. I just remember going to his room and him telling me that he didn't want me. He made it sound as if he only went along with it for his wife. But I remember as an adult, because I had a lot of issues, because the weight was real heavy for me because I was an adopted child and I had not met my family. I didn't know at that point, I didn't know what actually happened to my actual family for why I ended up here in these people's house. And I remember years later when I was an adult, I brought it up to my mother one night. And every time I noticed that, something was said that really hurt me to my heart, if I revisited it with them, they never remembered it, or they always, and my mother was very good on trying to make it sound as if I was like some crazy individual and, you feel like that because you was adopted, or, they never would take the position to take the responsibility for what they had done or for what they had said. And it was always like, oh, where did you come with that? And I remember she didn't believe me. And she was like, what? And I said, yeah, I remember Daddy told me, and it wasn't until later on in her years she tried to address it, and she tried to say, your father. I can't even remember what she tried to soften it for what came out of his mouth, but I remember her trying to, kind of throw it in my lap because I remember having to come to her about something that she had said to me when I was young, and she tried to kind of dismiss it. So I don't know what to say about revisiting my childhood, other than as an adult, I'm trying to perceive it all and make sense of it now. you know, because I like to say it has to be a reason. Because even now, I'm starting to remember, um, as a child, for me to hear that. For me to listen to someone saying that to me when I'm already an abandoned kid, So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, I have a part two to this concerning my father and my brothers, his kids, because their kids was really screwed up on a lot of levels. It's the one that made it out in peace or intact, I should say.
You're going to hear the second part of her conversation, and then we're going to go to Trisha's treasure. I have not forgotten Trish, so I want you to listen to her second part. Listen. It's coming, guys. I want you guys to hear this because I think this is the crux of things that we need to understand when people say they don't know what to say. They have a lot to say. So I'm having a little technical difficulty. See what happens to us. Yeah, that's too close. Okay. The second part of that was very emotional because what had happened was when she connected with her family, she did the footwork. Come to find out that her mother had passed away. We're going to have that for you, and I'm going to turn it over to Trisha's Treasures. We'll be right back with this break. We're back with Trisha's Treasures. Trish?
That was a lot for me because my childhood was hard, as I always tell you guys, but I don't like to complain as an adult. And just thinking of as an adult, even though I don't like to complain, it still comes back to haunt me sometimes. My insight is still a little shaky towards people because of what I experienced in being in school and things. So, um, I found when I was listening to it for a second time, because I listened to it for the first time I cried because the second story just made me think of how I grew up and me being born with my nystagmus disorder and how I was born with cleft lip and cleft palate and how my parents had to go through so much and um the reason why I was born with uh cleft lip and cleft palate is because the doctor said I wasn't supposed to be here. And so they went to another doctor, and my mom was taking the medicine. And basically, she took too much, and it affected me. So that's how that happened. And the second story just hit different for me because I think about what my parents must have gone through and what they went through during the time I was getting my surgeries and the emotional feelings that they felt during the time. And I I, I feel empathy for them. I feel for them. Like how she said that she feels sorry for her parents more than herself. That's how I feel about my parents and me. But um the one that really affected me the most is the last one because I um I had a conversation with my dad about when he would get upset when I was younger and he would say certain things and I had a conversation with him and I wrote him a letter. I was like, I thought that you really hated me for real. Like I really did. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry.
Don't be
Okay.
sorry. Get ready to
So
feel your emotions.
So I told him, like, Dad, I thought you hated me. And we had a conversation about it. We had a conversation and we sat in the car. He was like, I want you to know that I love you. I don't hate you. And we started talking. He was like, he didn't he didn't like deny it, but he didn't deny the things that I said that he said, but he also didn't acknowledge them either. And for me, I felt like that wasn't the peace that I needed. I'm talking from my perspective. That wasn't the peace that I needed. It
It
was
went
the
it went like fog. Restate that, please, because it wasn't clear. That last part.
oh okay. So I was saying that from my perspective, him acknowledging like the things that he said to me wasn't the peace that I needed. It wasn't going to change anything for me, but what I wanted to hear was I love you. That's what I wanted to hear from him. And we're not much on hugging and saying, the I love you a lot here. But during that time, like I really needed to hear that. And that's when it dawned on me that I need to hear that more often from him because it's a part of my healing and I need that because that's my dad. And um, he's the person that I want to be certain that if nobody else loves me, um, I know that he does. So that's how I feel. And that just made me think about my freedom of healing, my freedom of expressing how I feel towards someone. And that just goes a lot into freedom of speech as well. But I'm so grateful that he took time to read it because he didn't have to read the letter. He didn't have to do that. He wasn't obligated to. Um, he didn't have to have that talk with me. He could have just dismissed it, threw it to the back of the closet. But he didn't do that. He actually sat down and talked with me, and that just made me think about the bond that I was longing for with my father. I'm so glad that I have it now. But I'm just thinking about how I didn't think that it was fixable. Like I could repair that. I didn't think it was possible until when he got into the car accident and I was thinking I didn't have time to tell him, like, Dad, like I love you, I really look up to you, like you're so important to me. Like I didn't have time to say all that. And when he got into a car accident, I was like, I should have said this. I should have said that. But I took advantage of the time that we have. That he's still here. I took advantage of the time and I discussed it. So on this Think About Thursday, uh hopefully you guys think about the things that affect you and take advantage of that time. And be mindful that it's not going to be easy. We're not going to tell you that it is going to be easy because that is not true. But taking the time and attempting to try to fix or heal or discover what is challenging, that's the challenge that's going on inside of you, it is very, very important.
Face my eyes, face my eyes.
So I really appreciated that from your Trisha's Treasures. You can also find Trisha's Treasures on our YouTube channel and by hashtagging Trisha's Treasures. Don't miss out. I really appreciated the way that you talked about discovery. When you had the conversation with your dad, you discovered that you wanted your dad to tell you that he loved you. You wanted to hear that. And that's what we're talking about when we discover something. So our question or our podcast today is titled Elements of You, Discovery, Freedom, and Power. How have you learned yours? That's our title for today. And our Think About Thursday is going to be somewhat of along the lines. I will post it and we will discuss it next week. Think about Thursday. I hope this has impacted you, and I hope that this has helped you to understand that each person that answered, okay, had a different way that they answered, and they were all okay. They were all okay. So you've just gotten what the healing center is going to look like. If you want to know what the healing center is going to be like, just go listen to our podcast. I want to say thank you to our amazing audience. Thank you to my very special, amazing co-host, Trish. Thank you. Thank you for your segment, Trish's Treasures. And that story that the last person told, there's a lot more to that story. And we're going to hear it on another time. The sad part of that is that when she wanted to find her mother, wanted to reconnect with her biological family, it was more time. I thank you for listening. I hope this gives you a reason to heal yourself. Thank you, guys. This has been Vibe Talk Facing the Lion podcast. Thank you so much for your Think About Thursday. We'll see you next time.
Yes, I don't want you just to make a resolution. I want you to think about. I was really about to lose it, then I got the vibe with it. I really took my time with it. I really love the ride with it. Really got the vibe with it. I took my time with it. I really love the ride with it. You can finally see a better you.